Emperor&Kitsune. Who is this Nagi Seishiro? Yeah, he's a very famous gamer at the arcade here, also nicknamed the Emperor. Someone in the small crowd around you explained. Rumors say that he's unbeaten. But do you think he could beat Kitsune as well? Another person said, doubtfully. I once played him, someone else added in. It felt like I've been crushed for real. There is a reason why he's called the Emperor. Didn't you get crushed by Kitsune some time ago as well? Well, honestly, I don't think Nagi stands a chance against YN. As more and more people around you started to debate whether you were capable of winning against this Nagi Seishiro person, a smirk made its way onto your face. Pretending to not hear the discussion, you quickly finished the ongoing game with one last final strike, leaving the small crowd around you stunned and cheering, and your opponent groaning in frustration. Unbeatable? Perfect? This sounded like a challenge, and after all these tiring lame games you'd played against these tiring lame players around here, you really needed something more exciting. Your fingers were already itching at the thought of the thrilling feeling of an intense game. So, it would feel even better to crush him. Spending your summer holidays somewhere far away from the town you lived in order to visit your relatives again, you would spend countless times by yourself, bored by the strict family rules, the ancient traditions, your relatives criticizing you, how you were supposed to show respect to them under conditions like these, as your parents always ordered you to. God damn family hierarchies. To escape further rules, further pressure, and further boredom, you had begun to spend more and more time downtown, where no family members could possibly disturb your actions and keep telling you off. And that was how you had found this lovely place, the arcade, a place where you could let off as much steam as you needed. Games were surprisingly suited to move your mind elsewhere, and ironically, you had enough money to spend it on them. One of the ironic advantages of growing up in a traditional family as this one. But even that had eventually bored you. The discovery of your talent for gaming had been a surprise, and you would be lying if you claimed that you hadn't been enjoying the sweet taste of victory, and with that, the steadily growing amount of attention that even led you to getting a nickname. But as the time passed, playing games had become nothing more than a repetitive, monotonous action to you. The more you succeeded, your skill evolved, which led to an even bigger difference between you and your opponents, until the skill gap had become so big that people started to see you as a player far superior to them. That was when your freshly discovered hobby became more and more meaningless, leaving you irritated and upset. In fact, you had started to accept that there was simply no one who was better in gaming than yourself. So hearing of the unbeaten player of this arcade in the middle of Shiuba was almost like the jackpot served on a platter. An amazing opportunity was in sight, and you were as good as sure that Nagi was a challenging opponent. Maybe I could challenge him, you said out loud, still halfway in your thoughts. But how do I get in contact? That's easy, he comes here on a regular basis. Another person in the crowd suddenly cut them off, pointing at their wristwatch. Wait, isn't that the time when he usually shows up? Just as they said that, the doors to the arcade opened and a small group of people entered, catching your eye. The first person to enter was an energetic person with a haircut that resembled something between a wolf and a bowl cut, dragging a rather inconspicuous boy with themselves. They were followed by two other tall males, a buff one with spiky orange hair and one with long crimson hair, but your attention laid on the last two arrivers. A tall boy with purple hair tied back into a ponytail and wearing expensive-looking clothes, who, strangely, was carrying another boy on his back. That's him! That's the Emperor! Someone around you whispered, exclaimed, pointing at the group. Speak of the devil, you muttered to yourself, and your grin grew wider. As you heard the people around you starting to chatter excitedly, Quickly you got on your feet, trying to get a better view on the newcomers. Which one? The one with white hair, the one who's being carried right now. I see, you chuckled. The Emperor, huh? Looks a bit exaggerated for such a figure. You stopped mid-sentence when suddenly the white-haired male, Nagi, got off the other male walking towards you. With growing interest, you realized that he was now standing. You could see that he was unusually tall, not just for his age, but also for an average person. What a strange kid. Hey, you, Emperor guy, you exclaimed. You noticed how your voice rose in excitement and quickly took a deep breath, recollecting yourself and trying to establish eye contact. Hey, come and play against me, will you? That was when he walked past you, not even giving you a look, and let you remain frozen in the same challenging position. What? You couldn't believe it. How dare he treat you like air when you had openly challenged him in front of a whole crowd of people? And even worse, how could he just ignore a challenge of no one other than you, out of all people? You spun around, irritation and glimpse of anger letting your shocked paralysis wither. Oi, Nagi Seishiro, I'm talking to you, you exclaimed, taking a step forward. Finally, the white-haired male seemed to take notice of your presence, slightly turning his head towards your direction and eyeing you with just the tiniest bit of interest. So what? His words came out without any emotion, almost as if he was nonchalant about all of this. And it bothered you. It really did. So what? You spat, crossing your arms and lifting your chin just the slightest bit. I'm challenging you, obviously. You gonna accept? The crowd around you gathered in an ellipsis, you and Nagi standing in the middle of it, and unconsciously got closer to get a better look at the two of you. The chattering ebbed down as everyone waited for Nagi to reply, the atmosphere getting more and more tense, and you felt it, momentarily wondering if you weren't just making a fool out of yourself. But then the male blinked, obviously unimpressed, and opened his mouth. No, Nagi mumbled, and to no one's surprise, his answer came out as if he didn't realize what situation he was in. Look for someone else. But what if I already did? You replied, before a smile made its way onto your face, sugared in pity and empathy. Oh, I see. Too scared of losing your face? As if he'd be intimidated by someone like you. Fucking real. The purple-haired guy next to Nagi said in a dismissive tone. His eyes scanned you up and down in doubt, and he furrowed his eyebrows at your confident posture. Think you're capable of winning against Sei just because you won against them? He made a gesture with his hand, referring to the crowd around you. Because Sei is on a whole different level. Dream on. Wait a sec, Ryo. I've heard of them. The muscular, orange-haired guy from earlier stepped up to him and eyed you too, but with less intensity and mistrust, and you appreciated it. YN, or Kitsune, was it? You're quite popular, as far as I've heard. Ryo doubtfully lifted an eyebrow, replying before you got the chance to. They might be famous, he commented, but they're up against Sei here. Muscles. This is enough, Ryo. I'm gonna accept. Nagi went past his friends and stepped up in front of you. Whispers grew loud, and the crowds around the two of you were quick to exchange their opinions, and if you saw an opportunity in your showdown, and instantly started to place bets. But, Ryo protested, now, quick to collect himself and pointing at you. This shrimp! I said it's fine, Ryo. Nagi repeated with the same monotone voice, but there was something more underlying to it. Something that only Ryo, as his closest friend, could detect. He regarded your eyes, locking his gaze with yours, and spoke. One match will shut them up. Ryo nodded, half-heartedly, before glaring daggers in your direction. Yo, Kitsune, let me give you a warning. Bore him, and I'll end you. Fucking Ryo. And despite the intimidating situation you found yourself in, a grin appeared on your face, and you stepped forward as well, just as unfazed by the closeness as your opponent and pleased with the turn of events. This was where you wanted things to develop into. Just sit back and watch, rich kid, you said without breaking eye contact with the arcade's infamous emperor. Now, what are we waiting for? I'll be generous and let you choose what we're gonna play. You were not pleased with the turn of events at all. It had begun with a simple rhythm game, which you had won, but much to your worries, Nagi looked like he was about to fall asleep during the game. His eyes barely opened when he had performed, which confused and angered you, because nonetheless, his scores were too close to yours for the minimal effort he had put into the game. You had confronted him, wanting a rematch, and Nagi had, although reluctantly, agreed, suggesting a video game. This time, he had not held back, and he had knocked you out within seconds. Nothing had helped. Yelling, concentrating, aggressively tugging on the control buttons, and cursing the male. And that's why you were now at your third match. The final one, and the one to determine the winner. You were currently playing a redemption game, some shoot-down with plastic guns, testing your aim and durability, and you were, well, losing. Losing really bad, at least in your own eyes. You knew well enough that your scores were not only bad in comparison to Nagi's, but also to your usual ones. Letting out a curse, you pointed your fake gun toward the screen, eventually eliminating your target. Sweat began to form on your forehead. You were aware of the spectators, of their cheering and booing, and aware of the catastrophic situation you were in. Your reputation stood on the line. The attention was no longer lying on you, but on your opponent, your proclaimed rival, and your pride was hurt from the numerous losses you had experienced. The pressure was weighing you down and made your breath come faster. You glanced to Nagi, watched his coolness, his ever-so nonchalant expression, as if this task was no more difficult than a walk to the next grocery store. This match was taking too long, you thought. Maybe you weren't made to play these generic games after all. Maybe you were more generic amongst the generic than you had thought. But you refused to see it, refused to accept it, refused to take it for reality. Damn you, I'll prove all of you wrong. Tech. You took the soda drink out of the automat and opened the can with a loud noise, hurriedly taking a few sips and let out a heavy sigh afterwards. The air was cool and now, in the late afternoon, stronger winds were blowing, making you shiver. You looked up to the sky, the blue color softly fading into a more reddish one, and considered going back to your warm house. Then the thought of what your parents were possibly going to confront you with, and suddenly this choice didn't seem as tempting as before. What should you do? There was no way you could go back to the arcade for now. Maybe you could visit the boba store at the end of the street, or spend the rest of the time in malls. A sudden movement right next to you startled you, and you were more than surprised to see Nagi alone, his hands in the pockets of his sweatpants, and his hair slightly moving in the wind. You stared at him. He stared back. Then he opened his mouth and pointed to the automat. Sorry. You understood, stepped aside, and watched him with distrust as Nagi tried to find the money in his pockets, sweat dropping when he didn't succeed in doing so. He mumbled something unclear and was just about to turn around when you took a step forward. Wait. Nagi waited. You got your purse, a gift from your grandparents and printed with small foxes, and took some coins out of it, throwing it into the machine. Here you go, you said, making an inviting gesture toward it. Help yourself. As the male didn't move a centimeter, you put your purse back into your jacket, pockets again, and crossed your arms. Hurry up, see it as repay for the match. Why repay when you were the one to lose? You bit your lip. It was a close one, admit it. Now choose already, asshole. Nagi finally crouched down in front of the automat, and you watched as he pressed one of the buttons and took a can out of the machine afterwards. He opened it with one hand and looked around, his gaze landing on the parking lot behind the vending machine and the walls surrounding it. They were covered with graffitis, some more outstanding than the others, some showing anime characters and signatures, and he looked back at you to notice the slight frown on your face. Is something wrong? He asked, whereas the corners of your mouth twitched. I'm waiting for a thank you. Nagi huffed. Thanks, then. Don't say things you don't even mean. Silence settled over the two of you, and you glanced to your companion. Nagi took a small sip from his drink only, and a thought came to your mind, something you had been wondering about for a while already. No longer able to resist, you pointed at the can and asked, "How did you open it with one hand only?" "What? How did you—" You repeated, your fingers still pointing at the can in Nagi's hand. "Open the can, using only one hand." The male blankly stared at his drink. It was a skill he had adapted quickly after Reo had showed him, and something that came to him naturally, he didn't even realize. "It's not that hard." "Of course it isn't. Yeah, it shouldn't be that hard." Nagi glanced at you, seeing how you struggled to keep yourself together. He took a decision and pointed to the parking lot. "Standing is tiring," he said then. "Let's sit down." Silence, then a laugh. It began as a mere giggle until you couldn't hold it back anymore, and you were holding your stomach from laughing, trying to keep standing on your feet, while Nagi looked confused. "Why are you laughing?" "What do you mean? Why shouldn't I laugh?" "Aren't you frustrated?" "I mean, of course I am." You took a deep breath and reduced your laugh to a snicker. "I did want to win. That's why I went up against you in the first place. But right now," you smiled and looked up to the sky, "I somehow can't bring myself to be mad. I'm just glad I got to meet you." A small silence, then, "Sappy," the response came. "Shut up." Nagi made a sound, an unfamiliar one, and it took you a while to understand that it was a chuckle. Nagi, the arcade's emperor, Seishiro, just chuckled. "You just laughed," you exclaimed and turned to him, hoping to see the curl of his lip that you had suspected to never witness, but much to your dislike, Nagi was quick to let his smile disappear, his expressions returning to his usual bored look. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't act like you don't know. This is my personal win. I made you smile." "Do you have to make a competition out of this?" Nagi murmured, already walking toward the parking lot. "Calm down, seriously." "My bad," you said, quickly following him, and gave him a smile, not the faintest bit apologetic. Soon the two of you sat in a comfortable silence on the graffitied walls and looked up to the now bright pink sky. Before, much to your surprise, Nagi initiated a conversation. He shifted his weight and began to fiddle with the soda can. "Say, I was wondering, why do they call you the Kitsune?" "Oh, that." You thought about the question. "I guess it's because my family, everything is about tradition and religion there, and as you know, kitsunes play a big role in it, so therefore, this nickname just established itself in some way." Nagi nodded. It made sense to him. "And what about you?" you asked. "How come they chose the title Emperor for you?" "My friends gave it to me, actually. The others adopted it." Nagi's gaze trailed off while saying so, and you watched him curiously, wondering if he had anything more to say, but the male remained silent, and you shrugged and leaned back to watch the sky. A cool wind blew, ruffling your hair, and you closed your eyes, enjoying the fuzzy feeling in your stomach. Little did you know that Nagi was silently watching you. He was stunned by how admirable you looked at that moment, a moment that he'd remember forever. With the sunset tinting your face in warm hues, expression deep relaxation and calmness, and your loose hair moving with the cool winds, it was, once again, a side of you that he hadn't experienced yet, and it sent chills down his spine as you slowly opened your eyes, turning your head into his direction, locking your gaze with his. Nagi decided to deny the small beat his heart had skipped. Then the moment was gone as you looked past him, noticing something else. "Oh, damn it!" you exclaimed, regarding the parking lot's clock with wide eyes, slight panic rising inside you. "It's this late already?" "You gotta leave this early?" Nagi asked, and you turned around in irritation before realizing that it had been an honest question without any bad intentions behind it. You sighed and smiled apologetically. Of course, it's an early time for you. No, that's early, even for an ordinary person. Gotta thank my parents for that one at dinner, you mumbled, getting off the wall. Oh, right, Gran's gonna come too. Maybe she'll bring some gifts. Nagi jumped off the wall as well, landing ever so gracefully, and regarded you closely until you turned to him, your hands in your pockets. It was nice meeting you. Get home safely, you said with a grin and saw the male hesitate. Wait, Kitsune? Yeah, what is it? Nagi looked aside. He searched for the right words, and for the first time in his life, regretting that he had never learned how to properly say goodbye to people, since he'd been around Rio so much of the time anyway, and was now struggling to verbally express himself. But his facial expressions were as nonchalant as ever when he finally spoke. Thanks. It was fun today. Your grin softened to a smile. Then let's have a rematch sometime, Emperor.